Sonia ma'am, is the presentation visible? Is the
Yeah,
slide
ma'am, your
visible?
presentation is visible now. Yeah, ma'am, yeah,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Regis.
Hello, good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone.
Good morning, sir. Anthony, sir, shall we start the meeting? Anthony, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning. So, a very pleasant good morning to everyone. Taking our day further and to begin with the webinar, I, Dr. J. Rahila, Professor, Department of EEE, on behalf of everyone present here, heartily welcome the speaker of this session, Mr. Regis Thomas, General Manager, currently handling robotic process automation, digital process automation service globally at Ford India Pvt Ltd. It is an honor and a privilege for us, Mr. Regis, to have you with us today. I also welcome the management, director, principal, HODs, faculty friends, and students of Danish Ahmed College of Engineering for this webinar titled Robotics, Design, Trends and Market Potential. Mr. Regis, born and brought up in a small village Tachur near Chennai, is an inspiration to many in terms of his personal and professional accomplishments. His professional associations include Citibank Chennai, Zansa Limited Chennai, Ministry of Education Singapore, Barclays Bank Singapore, Singapore, Ford India Private Limited, currently as IT General Manager. He is a decisive, result-focused and collaborative professional over 23 years of experience in IT industry, the career spanning as Oracle DBA, System Administration, Project Lead, Project Program Management, Delivery Manager, Operation Service Manager, covering all aspects of IT landscape. He is passionate about innovation and people management, who has always gone the extra mile to succeed with collaboration and delivery of results. Mr. Regis has another side to his personality. Going beyond making a successful career, Mr. Regis also manages an educational trust through which he does many social activities. An inspiration to many, Mr. Regis has been silently helping deserving students of his village to rise above poverty and emerge successful. His main idea is to expose his village children to newer horizons and make them global students. We are very grateful to Mr. Regis Thomas for accepting our invitation and making his presence here. I now invite him to enlighten the audience with his presentation and expert speech. Thank you. Over to Mr. Regis Thomas.
All right, so I hope everybody's doing well. Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Regis, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm very humbled, very happy as well for the nice introduction. That was a pleasant surprise. Something that I always keep certain things to myself, but I'm glad you and your team has done some research to know what I do and where I come and what I am about. All right, so good morning again to all of you. It's a Friday, so I just wanted to make this presentation very lively. And more importantly, I wanted to make this presentation much more useful to you, which I think you should carry away. Some of the key things that you will see towards the end of the slides, where we will be talking about what is your future in the space and how we will be able to maneuver around some of the opportunities that exist. And that's the whole crux of the presentation. So I will take the control and share my screen. All right. Is my presentation visible? Can someone confirm?
No, Mr. Regis, you have to share again, I think.
All right, let me do it again. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So as you heard in the introduction, today we will be talking about robotics, especially on what is this robotics about and what are the trends in market today and what are the market potential that you have as a future generations of this IT. Now, we will be talking about some of those conceptual things. Though I handled the robotics for the entire Ford Motor Company, I would be able to give you my perspective, and there would be a few things that you will explore as you get into some of these concepts. So this is not the end of everything. So I'll give you an overview, and you will be able to see yourself more as you get yourself exploring. All right. So to begin with, I wanted to ask each of you to take your mobile phones or in your laptops, go to slido.com. There is a site, slido.com, and it will ask you to type a participant code, which is 509448, where I've asked you a question about what do you know about software robotics? We know about robotics as a physical objects, but there isn't only that, right? We also have software robotics. So I want you to give your opinion. It could be one word, right? It could be, I can show you what I've given it. I've said as, if you can see my screen, what do you know about software robotics? I said it's a myth, right? For some of us who don't know, beginners, we call it as a myth. So go to slido.com, give 509448 as the participant code, and then type one word about what you know about this. Can all of you try this, please? Just type slido.com, and you will be able to give your answer. Are you able to get it right? Because I don't see any other participants coming in. Just type slido.com and you will see a space to enter 509448. And thereafter, you can type one word about what you know about software robotics.
Mr. Regis, can you tell me the number once again?
509. It's there on the screen.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, just type 509448, and you will see a question which will talk about what you know about software robotics. Yeah, some people say it's a future. Some say it's cool. Some repeatedly said myth. You can use different names or different analogy to represent what a software robotics could be. Yeah, it's a programming languages. Some say it's a normal, next. That's a nice word. Next normal. Future humans, programming design, physical objects, artificial intelligence. Wow, this looks cool. I hope you're able to see the results as well on the screen as I refresh it. All right. I mean, it's a programming, language, some say, and some say, it is everything about future. Wonderful. Some say it's a program design. Some say it is a bot. Wow. And a lot of us said myth. So, which means a lot of us, are trying to explore what it is. I'm happy that this topic will give you some answers to those people who are still saying it's a myth. Yeah, we got about 30 odd responses so far. And it's amazing. Yeah, some say it is an amazing. And some say it is automation, easy to handle, wonderful. And some say it is future humans. All right. Thank you. I think we had a good numbers. Yeah, we'll stop there. I hope you're able to see the results on the screen as well as I show you. So it boils down to one particular word called myth, right? So we will make sure that you get that answer right. All right, so thank you. If you're doing it first time in Slido, this is the site which can be used for creating some online polls in whatever way of the form that you wanted. It's a free, and you can try it yourself somewhere in the next meeting as well. Okay, so this is the agenda for today, where I will talk about myself. I know I've got an introduction already. Then we will talk about an introduction and what robotics means. And then there will be, a little deep into what are the business cases which will allow robotics, to work. And then we will also look at, the current market adoption. We will look at, robotics supplier ecosystem. I think that is where I will add more value, because I deal with a couple of important global suppliers at Ford, and that is where we will be talking about it. And I have a couple of case studies which will give you some information about what we learned as a Ford Motor Company implementing robotics. And we will also touch upon some of the other people who are early adopters. And then finally, we'll talk about, what is the future of this? Right, and you and I will be traveling along, and I've come along, and some of you will be following this path, and you need to know what the world is offering to you. And we'll also have a time for Q&A. Okay, so that's the agenda for today. Right, so I just wanted to give a couple of more informations about myself as I get into the presentation. I've spent all my time with IT. 23 years has been a long time coming. Worked in various countries in Chennai and Singapore. I also have a PMP certification, which allowed me to work exclusively on program management, which would deal with multiple industries, multiple people. Little fun about myself. I love cricket. Of course, many of you would be. And Dhoni is our role model leader that I always look up, whether he's playing or not playing. One word to describe about myself, I'm an enthusiastic guy. I love innovation, as I said. It is all about, the future and how do I make a difference in it. So that's a little bit about me. Right, so let's get into the introduction of what this robotics is all about. Now, if you look at this slide, there are 4 quadrants that you see, right? The global business environment today is making every time a shift towards a progressive and also shift towards what is coming up in the next generation. Look at the leftmost in a quadrant, which is the economic shift. If you look at many of the countries that we have, it used to be all about the developed countries, be it America, be it United Kingdom, but we have seen that shift slowly moving into the demographic of elsewhere. I remember many years back, people tell me in China they don't speak English at all. And I've traveled at least minimum 10 times to China. I've done business there. And I see people, the young generation now talks more and more about technology and more about the globalized language called English. They understood that they have to survive within their own region and they have to survive elsewhere. So one of the things that, and of course India, which is another emerging country, which is obviously showing the results of our IT industry here. So the demographic shift also came. And then there was a shift towards consumer preference as well. Gone of those days where we used to go to the shops in person, we buy products, we make sure that we look at multiple options, right? We negotiate, we bargain. But these days, of course, leave alone the COVID, but otherwise, all of us now started to buy things online, right? The retail has become more online, and there are more competitive prices and more options to choose from. Now, that shift obviously goes towards the 4th quadrant, which is the technology shift, right? One of the point that I came across is the first statement that you see on the screen, right? There are about 6 billion people have access to mobile phones, but there are only 4.5 people have access to toilets, right? This is a paradigm shift where you see people more into technology, adopting more mobile-friendly type of environments. That paradigm shift obviously is nothing but a paradigm shift of fundamental shifts, right? So that is how we are looking at the global environment today. And I'm introducing a word called BPM. I think this is something that you should come to know, right? So obviously the business process management is the BPM. So that is something that I will explain you in detail. You will understand what it is, and then we will travel along with that with robotics. Now, when I look at the BPM industry, right? So it's a new world reality, right? So that's a technology word that I told you, right? The BPM, the business process management, is nothing but whatever that we do today. It could be, making an hiring process. It could be, doing a reporting system. It could be tracking some of the attendance of the employees. It could be related to the payrolls. Anything we term as a BPM, right? Business process management. Now, there are multiple things that you see in the BPM world where you have sourcing, you have some of the scoping of a few things, and there are some decisioning related work that we do with BPM. There is also commercial model, and there is also technology model as well. And now, what does the sourcing means, right? Either we do shared services or we do global in-house centers. What is this global in-house centers, right? We have, for example, Ford Motor Company has a big office in Sholingnallur. We have about 12,000 employees here. That center is nothing but global in-house center. We have a global company called Ford, and we have a sourcing place where we have people sitting and operating out of Chennai. That is what is called GICs, global in-house centers. Now, these obviously, very, very important traditional method that you would have heard 10 years back. The new world is, we're obviously doing that hybrid model, right? We have people sitting here operating out of, the in-house, We also have people sitting across the shore in US or in Europe or in any other country, where providing the solution for all those technological outcomes. And when it comes to the scope, there are multiple things, as I told you. You have the accounts, you have the payroll. All of that used to be in paper. It used to be in different modules. Now we have everything in a single source system, what we call it as end-to-end process. And I'm one of the advocate of this ETE, which is end-to-end process, where we do a lot of things: order to cash, record to report, procure to pay. I think we do the integration between A to B and B to C, and making sure all these loose ends are tied up, and we give one short solution which will help everybody to get benefited. I think that's where the new world is moving, and it has already moved to an extent where we're all traveling together. And decision support and a commercial model, right? You have initially FT is nothing but we have the individual user, right? Each of us called as an FT, a full-time equivalent resource who's working. And today we have something called outcome based and output based, right? We give a chunk of the work to a particular a company and ask them to produce the results that we wanted, right? You buy it at the cost, whatever the cost that you wanted, instead of you building it. Early days, we used to have, we used to build our products, we used to build our own solutions by our employees. Now we get everything in the market, like how you do Amazon or Flipkart. Now that is what the technology shift, the paradigm shift that I was talking about, where we were asked to run the model. We used to have limited technologies, we used to have limited people. Now it is all augmented and platform-based automated models. I think that is the paradigm shift that is taking robotics, and robotics is something that you will enjoy seeing these outcomes. Now, I don't want to go through all of these in the slide, but just wanted to give you two outcomes of this. Now, if you look at the robotics as the newest form of the automation that I have been talking about, there are multiple things that you see here, right? There are multiple decision systems, integrated solutions, whatever that you would have seen and heard about. But the world is moving towards robotic process automation. You have assisted robots, you have unassisted robots. All of that you will see in the future slides. But when you look at any automation, any augmented solutions, I think robotics stands apart. Now let's get into some of the business case and also understand what challenges that we have. It is not all rosy. It is something that you will see, and as I explained in a couple of slides, there are enormous amount of benefits, but there are also some challenges, right? Nothing comes easy. You will have to go through some of those challenges. Now, if you look at the overall, we call it as a layered approach, right? And this is the a cycle which we talk about, where robotics gives you high value and low risk, right? I mean, the challenges are there, but as I said, they are very low. Now, if I start with the first one, which is a cost reduction. Now, what does this cost reduction means, right? So you have 5 people doing a job, 5 people executing a tasks on a day-to-day basis. And now suddenly you bring in automation into that whole process. And instead of 5 people doing it, 1 robot can do all that 5 people were doing. Now the question comes to us and saying, I'm able to reduce the cost of the 5 people by having 1 robot. What happens to those 5? Am I chopping those heads? No, we are not chopping those heads. What we are trying to say is, we are telling them, keep learning new things, keep, upgrading yourself, do something, beyond what it is, routine and repeated and mundane. Do something beyond, your capability, pushing out of their comfort zone. The second important high value that comes across is better service, delivery, and manageability. As you know, in a human being, we all have those, human errors. People tend to have our own weaknesses in productivity. we have, all those challenges that you see, and we in this world today working from home remotely, it's a challenge for me to manage those 40 odd people that I have, checking on them whether they're productive, right? So this gives an opportunity for us to deliver that, high quality service and quicker time to value realization, right? If I have to build 5 people's knowledge, it takes at least 6 months for me to educate them, give them a time to understand what the solution is, what the process is, what the company situation is, and then they will start deliver your products. But in this case, the moment your robots are there on the job, they'll start deliver from the day one, right? So that's the quicker value that we have seen. Of course, it is non-invasive, right? Obviously, it will not infiltrate any other systems. It will only bound, the systems that are coming in. We call this inbound and outbound systems, where, information is received and information is also sent across. And then easier remediation. I think this is obviously too simple, to understand, where you can learn. You can obviously do configurations easier and easier, to roll back as well. We can just destroy it as you want it. So it's a vicious cycle that, it'll start keep, evolving as we go into much more deeper into these robotics. And of course, it has low risks as well, which obviously can be remediated if we have right people in the system. Now, I'll quickly touch upon those 5, benefits that we talked about, that vicious cycle. I'll, quickly run through an example, right? In my organization at Ford Motor Company, we have a big department called finance and accounting. Now, we did 2 years back, spoke to them on how do we make this finance and accounting much more efficient and cost saving as well, right? So we got that entire 100% of the work from the US to Chennai, where they gave the work as an offshore finance and accounting operations. Now, if you have to do this job, you may have to employ about 200 plus people to get this, regular routine work. Now, what we did is, by virtue of, low cost center, we call our countries as low cost center because of, the value and the manpower that we get here. If you have to do that, work in US with 200 people, it might cost you $1 billion. But if you have to do that here in India or in Chennai, you will be saving about 47% of that cost, right? So that obviously is the paradigm shift. It used to be 10 years back what we call it as low cost center. Now what we are adding to that particular low cost center is the value addition that we're talking about. We have more equipped people here in India, where we are bringing these automations, bringing these technology shifts, bringing this smart thinking technological advancements. And we are able to show that we can also work along with the other people, but we will also add the technology aspect, which obviously yields about 60 to 67% of the onshore operations cost. So this paradigm shift, where you have the entire process of the financing, which will obviously be more efficient, more non-error driven, because it is all numbers, and by virtue of using robotics, you'll be able to cost save and also provide a better customer satisfaction as well. Now there are other benefits which we talked about, right, beyond the cost. I talked about the the improved service delivery, right? You go to any any showroom or any purchasing place, you will ask for is it a quality product? How effectively this will work, right? Is it secured? Is it having that fully controlled automated system, right? There are multiple questions we ask for value that money that we pay. Of course, this is what the robotics can give you, where it gives you a quality outcome. It speeds up your entire ecosystem. It has a good governance where you have people looking after every stage of the entire process. And of course, it is secured, right? I mean, a lot of people talk about hacking certain systems. Everywhere there are loopholes, but security is obviously comes along with your systems that you build. And of course, business continuity. What happens if something fails, something broken? Do I have that continuity of business? Is my data secured? Is my data recoverable? Right? All those questions will be there, and we have answers for everything in robotics. And of course, a simple model to show time to value realization. Right? I told you, if you have multiple things to perform, robotics stands apart. It has that results in a shortest span of time compared to the other BPM tools or the enterprise application information, which is obviously the EAA tool. I mean, enterprise application implementation is nothing but your any Java based, any .NET based applications that we develop as a software. And of course, as I told you, it is non-invasive and easier for remediation. Now, we talked about some of the nice things about these robotics, right? As I said, everything comes with some caveat, which is nothing but a challenge. Now, I've been into this industry of robotics for the last 2+ years, and I've used multiple products, and I'll show you some of those products. Right? Some of the market, concerns, some of the feedback that I receive, when I meet with the other company and competitors, they talk about, first and foremost, I think I did touch upon this a bit, right? The resistance. If I come to your college and say, look, I'm going to automate, half of your learning process for which you need to learn a new technology. I don't know how many of you will put up your hand and say, yes, I want to learn the new technology. By virtue of it, I can automate half of my learning process. I don't have to go back to my books. I don't have to go back to my notes, right? So that resistance will be there because people think, will I lose my job, right? If a technology is going to take away what I'm doing, will I be able to survive? Will I be able to earn the money that I'm earning today? I'm the breadwinner. How would my family would survive? A lot of people have a lot of questions. And 2 years back, I had a very bad feedback from my own company, from my own subordinate saying, this guy is here to chop my head, right? That's not the intent. Remember, 20 years back, when I used to be in the college, 25 years back, when I used to be in college, I hardly seen a computers. There used to be old desktops, the heavy ones, right? Something will be scrolling up and down. We used to look at from afar and said, oh, is this a computer? Oh, that's nice. Good to see. But has that computer taken away the jobs? As a computer has taken away the life of many of us today? No, the computer has enabled us to do better things. If I don't have a laptop today, I wouldn't be, doing a session to you today. I wouldn't be working from home in a pandemic. It only enables me, and it enables every one of us to go to that new, variant, which is obviously, moving along with the industry, right? I did my, degree in mathematics, but I'm in IT. Look at, the paradigm shift that I had in myself, right? So, I mean, I would have been, doing mathematics and thereabouts, probably, a lecturer in some college. But I made that paradigm shift to IT. I've survived for 23 years. I kept myself progressing on what is next. What should I do to get, there? I think that is what, all of us should, contemplate and look at how we should be able to, come across those resistance from our own selves, from our own teams. Of course, there are hidden costs which will come and haunt us. No, there isn't anything called, people talk about, upfront costs. Upfront costs are nothing but, where you, invest on the licensing, right? You invest on the infrastructure, you invest on the learning, because it is a new product, you got to learn. And of course, there are some recurring costs, right? Which is obviously, people keep making people learning, make, higher configurations of your systems. I don't use the same Dell laptop that I was using 2 years before. The 2 years Dell laptop that I had was even bigger and, heavier. Now I have a slim and touch screen and all that we get, right? So that's the advanced shift that we are making. And what is the issues that comes across on visibility? A lot of people, talk about robots, software robots. Some of you said, these are robots that run, as a program. Yes, they are invisible, software robots, where it is very difficult to pinpoint where it is failing, what it is doing, and what it is not doing. Now, when it comes to human beings, it's easy to navigate, which code is not working, who did that, and how did it fail, and all that. But there are certain audit controls. There are certain, controls that would unlock all your, issues. There are, system-based navigations that we can do. All of that will be, the talking points that you will learn as you, come across some of these. Right, so there's nothing worry about, that the robots will be spoiling your party in the background. No, they will be doing good as long as we have a better code. And finally, it is not significant in itself. People will have perceptions about it. It is just a lever for cost reduction and fast, efficiencies and accuracy. Of course, for a sustained gains, right, we need to have other technologies. You need to integrate with artificial intelligence. You need to integrate this with machine learning. You need to integrate this with blockchain. So there are multiple other things that will obviously peripheral systems that will make it much more effective. All right. I hope you're all with me, following what I'm going through. I hope it's not boring as well. All right. So the next is obviously the current market adoption. So we talked about what is robotics. We learned a bit about, how these robots, can integrate with our life. And I showed you a couple of examples on the business cases. Now we'll see how the current market is adopting it, right? Now, again, you keep seeing a lot of diagrams, and I wanted to make it simple for you to keep it in your mind. So when I analyzed robotics, from my experience of last 2-3 years, I looked upon these 6 parameters, right? You have to, robotics cannot be, just like that used, in anything and everything, isn't it? You need to have a sizable component of your work that can fit into this whole model, because your investment is so high, you're going to have high profile candidates working on it. So first look at what is the size and the growth composition of any of your work. The next one is the RPA potential business, which is horizontal and industry vertical as well. Now, what is that horizontal and vertical, business, right? So the horizontal business is how far, how many years that you're going to grow this business, right? The sustenance part, right? You're not going to develop something for a year and destroy it. You need to have them for a longevity. And the vertical business model is where you're going to add on these new technological components that I talked about, isn't it? We talked about blockchain. We talked about machine learning. We talked about artificial intelligence. We talked about cloud, right? Cloud adoption. So these vertical layers can only make more potent when we, have these robots implemented. And of course, we need to be obviously on par with the industry, right? You need to keep looking at the trends. We need to see how geographically we are able to make this happen. Right today, as you know, Ford Motor Company is, from America. It's the largest, second largest manufacturer in the world. But we have the robotics center here in Chennai, right? That's because this geography warrants, and this geography has that opportunity for us to size some of those automation, talent that we put in. So that is where you need to look at the trends. And then the adoption pattern. I think this is obviously something that I keep talking about. You got to adopt to the new. You got to adopt to the emerging. You got to adopt to something, that comes as and when, something changes dynamically. So that adaptability and flexibility, as I said, I was a Max graduate. When I came into IT, completely a transformational change. And that adoption made me to, hold on to this particular, thing that I'm doing today, right? So be adaptive and be flexible. And then we need to know how we are going to implement and how are we going to continue to support. Today, I have about 20 plus people from HCL giving a support for my robotics, customers, right? I've outsourced that particular piece of work to HCL, and HCL is giving me that, support, right? I buy that support. I don't build that support because I see building that support is not going to have a value addition for me. So I started to look for options where I bought it from HCL, and the HCL company is giving me that support 24/7, 365 days in a year. So that implementation and support landscape is important. And finally, remember those global in-house centers that I talked about? The stage of global in-house centers in terms of RPA solution adoption. I think we need to have that commitment. Remember, I talked about our office in Sholing, Nallur, where we have a big office. We got about 12,000 employees sitting there and supporting, right, doing various IT work. And we obviously stage our robotics there, and we have a big chunk of people, about 30 to $50 million investment on a yearly basis. So that is the landscape that I'm talking about, and that is what the multiple parameters where I've analyzed why robotics can be a sustainable solution. Let's move on to the next one, where what are those suppliers? As I told you, I have been dealing with some of those global suppliers and their ecosystems, and I'll touch upon a little bit on them. Now, if you look at the ecosystem here, right, we have multiple supplier ecosystems, and one of them would be the BPM service providers. One of them would be the RPA technology vendors, and the other people are like specialist technology integrators. Now, the BPM service vendors, obviously, related to, it could be Microsoft products, it could be other payroll projects, and there are multiple financial products that we deal with. There could be multiple things about the human resources. So there are multiple BPM related products that we deal with, and they're all independently existing in silos. And of course, there are robotics related technology vendors as well. I'll introduce you to a few of them in the next slide. And there are about other specialist technology integrators. Now, how are we going to bound all of them and give a formidable solution for our company? Then we talk about the strategy of how the strategy is going to evolve with the suppliers. Right? Am I going to do an independent approach where each of these BPM service providers are performing in silos? Am I going to bring it as a joint approach, or am I going to license it to one product and execute that particular one-stop solution for all the requirements that we have across the enterprise? And then we have an option to choose from a sourcing models. Either we can buy a tool and then create this one-stop solution that we talk about, or we can have this solution given to our vendors and ask them to build that particular solution themselves, and we take the benefit out of it. Or we can have that embedded both from the vendors that we have and the licensed products that we have. We can combine both of them and create a one-stop solution as well. So there are multiple options. It is all depends on how your company wants it. Now, this is a slide which will interest you, because all of you, once you are graduated, you would be getting into one of those companies, right? So, right, be it Accenture, Capgemini, Cognizant, you name it, SCL, Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, Wipro, you name anything that is available. And these are some of the examples, right? I'm not giving all of them, right? Though these are the BPM service providers that I talked about, right? Again, just to give you an inference about what the BPM solutions are, a BPM solution could be a payroll system, an HR system, learning system, or anything that is to do with the employees and their attendance related. So there are multiple solutions are available. If you go to any banking, right, you have iBanking, right? So that is a module, a banking solution, probably created by one of the IT companies and sold to those banks, be it ICICI or HDFC. So those are BPM services that we are talking about. And now we also have the technology vendors, the robotics technology vendors. In Ford, we are using two. One is the OpenSpan, the other one is UiPath. So, of course, there are Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism. I worked on Automation Anywhere for a bit, Blue Prism a bit, but now predominantly we are using OpenSpan and UiPath. Now, these are robotic vendors. I mean, these are, the vendors that are popular today, right? There's always a ranking for these guys. Every year they will do ranking on who's doing well on top, who's not doing well, why they're doing well, and what are their key parameters, right? In terms of all those great things that we talked about in the previous slides, whether they're delivering those, and then they will be ranking on them, right? And then there are some specialist technology integrators like Gen 4, Symphony, right, to the visual operations. And these are the other areas where you will be able to synchronize and use those technological aspects. Now, how do we bound all these three together, right? That's when your robotics comes into the picture. This ecosystem does not stand alone. If you look at 10 years back, each one of them had their own empire, right? So today, their empires are all now trying to look at, can I do a joint venture? Can I do a collaborative model? Can I work in tandem with other companies? As I told you today, Ford has a collaboration with HCL, Accenture, Infosys, Wipro, and a few other companies like Tech Mahindra, of course, Cognizant, right? So the reason why we have to collaborate with them is it's not that we can do everything, on our own in the IT world, isn't it? We need to have those expertise. I told you, I purchased a robotic support from HCL. I have people working, developing robots from Accenture. I have people in Wipro integrating some of the payroll systems in finance and accounting for Ford. Right? These are the integrators that I'm talking about by using some of these technology, RPA technology vendors. And also whenever needed, we also use the other technology integrators. So this is what, the ecosystem that we are talking about. And these are some examples for you to learn. Now, I keep talking about this paradigm shift of, skilling, right? One of the study that I recently read from Capgemini is that about 55% of the organizations acknowledged that not only was there a huge gap for STEM skills. I hope you know what is STEM skills, right? Science, technology, engineering and math, right? That's what we call it as STEM skills. And it is widening, right? And of course, Gartner is one of the company. Remember, I told you we have those rankings for those companies in the previous slide that we talked about. So Gartner obviously estimates and gives projections on the technology world, and they tell us about 30% of the jobs will be unfulfilled, owing unavailability of relevant talent in digital. I mean, that is a fact. If you look at your jobs, if you look at your future, you got to be highly skilled. And the niche skills, robotics is a niche skill. The niche skills are going to be in demand. And in India, we see this technology is shifting towards a paradigm where we are forming the new hub. And as I told you, Ford has already thought about it. This 12,000 employees that I talked about is going to be 22,000 employees in the next 2 years. 22, 100% high. That is the paradigm shift that we're talking about. Then we'll, one case study that I want to touch upon from the early adopters, right? I just took an example from one of the investment bank, where they achieved about 80 to 85% of the time saving in the reporting and indexing processes, right? I think they obviously deployed the robotics for automating some of their processes. They had a lot of errors by manual working. They had a lot of reports that were not filed on time. And then this obviously, resulted in moving towards that paradigm shift that we're talking about. And early adopters tell us that they were able to see the value for the money that they have invested, about 80 to 85% of the time saving. Now, as I said, what is the business situation? They want to look at 100% accuracy. Any banking, any financial institutions will want to see that accuracy. And all the reporting processes should have, the 90% of the indexing process automated, because the integration of those data points will not be, sufficient if you're going to do it manually, right? So this is the paradigm shift, and one case study for you to know how these things are happening across the globe. Right. So some of the discussions that I had with my own competitors, I just want to give you one perspective about what they think and how the market is thinking today. There is a positive alignment that is required, where organization should be ready. 2 years back, if you ask Ford Motor Company to do an automation, bring in a virtual robotic, we have physical robots in the factories, but the virtual robotics, no, they would have said no. I mean, we are a traditional company. I don't think we will be moving across from the traditional values. So that readiness is something that we did, and I was there from the day one of this particular readiness. And process viability, I think we should have a selective processes that can enable this model to work, and this process should be able to be sustainable. And then what is the robotic impact, right? So how am I going to bring that the suitability, the impact that it will create across the organization, and of course the build capability, right? Again, we need to have people within our own system where we need to build that knowledge, right? You cannot buy everything from outside, isn't it? We all do purchasing, we all do online shopping. Do we buy everything online? Probably not. We do certain things, in person. Now, even the doctor consultations these days become online without even touching you, without even seeing you in person. People are prescribing to medicines. I mean, that's a one-off case because of COVID. But otherwise, we have to be in person for a doctor consultant, right? So we need to build certain capabilities. We need to also buy some capabilities as well. Why should I waste time instead of, we wasting investment and time? We can buy it for a shorter period of time, and then we can, move on from there, right? I think that capability building is something that you and I have to learn and move on. Right. The last topic that we have for today in the agenda is what implications does robotics and BPM have in the industry. Right. So there are 5 points again. I've just put across a simple way so that you understand. This is the new world order. That's a word I have given it as. It's a new world order, both commercial and operations. Right. If you see the revenue and the margins, it has obviously given, people have tasted that benefit. I have tasted that benefit. We had about 70 odd people working in the department. We are now 40, which means I have reduced the headcount. I've also reused those 30 odd people in different departments for a different type of work, and these 40 people are showing that maturity and the return of investment that we had, because we have moved our needle towards the betterment. The pricing models, right? People think it is high priced component, high price a way of investment, but this isn't, right? You need to put the first investment for you to see the longevity of your outcome. I think that is the model that we are talking about. From an operational point of view, talent, shoring, and contract. So the talent is obviously, right, it doesn't come just like that, right? You need to build the talent. I told you, build versus buy, right? You need to build something, you need to buy something. The shoring is obviously, you need to give it across to the, remember that first slide that we talked about, the shift that, that comes across. We need to look at opportunities and avenues across the board and see where the talent is available. And then contract composition. This is where I told you, the buy concept. Talent is obviously we can build. We can also buy some, values and, technological SMEs outside as well. So that's the way I wanted to show you the new world order about commercial and operational. Right. So in this, I'll take only one example, from the third one with the talent model. Just want to show you, right, before RPA came into this, in existence, there are a lot of people, in the entry. They showed, interest. They wanted to just grab and then see what they can do about it. And then as you grow up in the ladder, there are a lot of people, the strength is there. If you see the post RPA delivery pyramid, you see there is obviously, people still interested in getting into the into this. And there are mid to entry, and there are a lot of people, and nowadays a lot of these things are taught in the colleges, and people get exposure in the early days, and then they get into an SME. SME is nothing but subject matter expert, and then they come to a mid-entry and then make a case for themselves. So this is where this paradigm shift that is coming in, and there are a lot of opportunities for us to play around. And again, in 2015, there are a lot of services that are about 90% of the services were manual. Only about few percentage were automation using technology. But by 2025, right, the Everest Group, which is where we took the data, shows that about 55 to 65% will be manual, but there will be 45% of automation and technology influence, which is going to be a good thing to know. Now, what I want you to take away today is one thing, which is reskilling. I've been harsh in saying reskill or perish, right? But don't take it so seriously. I'm telling you, if you have to survive and be happy in your careers, I will tell you that a secret, which is nothing but reskill, right? You keep enhancing yourself, learn as much as you can. Look at variety of things that you see in your in your hindsight, and keep chasing them. I think that is where your future lies. And just one industry response before I conclude, right? There are a lot of people talk about emerging technologies, right? I've listed some of them, like the big data analytics, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and so on. And there will be multiple job opportunity roles, right? I just given one arithmetic here: 9 emerging technologies, 66 plus job roles in each of them, and then there are different skills within that roles that you and I perform. So keep an eye on some of those emerging technologies, some of those new skills that are in demand, which will enhance your career. And finally, a key takeaway for all of you, some data points that I did, right, where we talked about in 2018, there were only so many 140,000 people were behind some of those big data, artificial intelligence, and those emerging. But there's a big paradigm shift of 18%. As we come to 2021, it has seen 230,000 people are looking at that area where they want to upscale, they want to look at their future in those directions. I just want to leave you with one point of view, which is Regis's point of view. The only skill that you will be implementing, will be important in the 21st century is a skill of learning new technology. Everything else will become obsolete over a time. So I urge you, all of you, to take these points that I talked about and embrace those new technological things that are coming in your way, and make the career for yourself. It is you who will decide end of the day what you want, not the others. And with that, I want to pass for some time for Q&A. Before that, I want to thank the management of the college, and of course Dr. Aguila, and all those who attended today, for patiently listening through the last 45 minutes. I hope you found it useful, and I'll be happy to answer if you have any questions, please.
Students, do you have any questions?
Right, so we say it famously, either you understood that you don't have any questions, or you did not understand anything that you don't have any questions either.
Students, any questions?
All right. No worries. We can take the questions offline as well. I mean, I can share my details, and if anybody has any interest, anything that you want to pursue, post your academics, I would be definitely happy to support that through your professors.
Thank you, Mr. Regis. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Your insights into robotics and how it is going to impact lives, economy, and future was both fascinating and disturbing. Thanks for your insights into this most important topic. And now I invite Professor Shagar Banu, HOD of Electrical and Electronics Engineering Department, for the vote of thanks.
Good morning to all. I deem it's a great honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. Let me first of all start by giving a glory to Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our special guest, Mr.Regis Thomas, sir, General Manager, IT Food India Pvt Ltd, who, despite his busy schedule, has found time to grace this occasion. Really, the session was very informative and very useful to us, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I extend my grateful to our director, sir, Dr. Paramasivam, who encouraged us to conduct such programs. And I also thank our principal, Dr. Uma Kauri ma'am, for their esteemed support for this function. My heartfelt thanks to our Dr. Rahila ma'am, who arranged for this program and made this program a grand success. I also thank all the faculties who have worked hard to ensure this occasion to become a memorable success. Last but not least, I thank all the participants and students for your cooperation making this function success. Once again, and thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Regis, for your presentation. Thank you for your time. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Students, we have posted the feedback link. So once you fill the feedback link, it will be live for another 20 minutes. Once you fill the feedback link, you'll get your certificates, e-certificates. This feedback link will be posted in the YouTube as well. Don't forget to fill this feedback link.
Students group, second year, third year, and final year. Sharp and mixed order.
ஒரு 40 மினிட்ஸ் மட்டும் பேசணும். 40 மினிட்ஸ்க்கு பேசுங்க. என்ன ஃபில் பண்ணிட்டு போறானுங்களா, ஃபில்லாக பண்ணாமல் போகுது.